Sound?
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Liberdadi checks in at 68 degrees and partly cloudy. Wind check, northwest at 8 miles an hour. First up, the unexpected shift in post-Brexit Britain. The Guardian investigation reveals a paradox. Brexit voting areas have seen the fastest growth in foreign workers since the 2016 EU referendum, while simultaneously experiencing relative economic decline.
Concrete data from the Office for National Statistics, corroborated by analysis of HMRC payroll data, reveals a stark reality. Between 2016 and Q1 2023, regions with the highest leave vote share, such as Boston and Lincolnshire, saw a 15% increase in non-EU workers, compared to a national average of 5%. This surge is largely driven by expanded visa routes like the Seasonal Worker Visa Scheme and Skilled Worker Visas for sectors experiencing chronic shortages, particularly agriculture, food processing, and hospitality, which previously relied heavily on EU labor. This development directly affects local populations who voted for reduced immigration, exposing them to a new, diverse wave of labor, often in low-wage sectors. Simultaneously, these very areas often face stagnant wage growth and increased pressure on local public services, while the essential industries struggle to maintain viability without this influx. One viable alternative path would be a substantial, targeted national investment in automation and AI-driven solutions for these specific industries, coupled with a comprehensive, locally tailored reskilling program for existing residents. This would empower local workers to transition into higher-skilled roles in advanced manufacturing, agri-tech, or maintenance of new automated systems, reducing reliance on temporary foreign labor while boosting local economic resilience.
The narrative of taking back control now echoes with a different, more dissonant rhythm in these communities. It's a complex dance between economic necessity and deeply unfulfilled promises, a psychological contract broken. The ghosts of historical labor migrations return, mirroring past waves of Irish, Windrush, or Eastern European workers who filled critical gaps. Only now, the political backdrop feels like a betrayal. Local residents are left questioning who truly benefits from this shifting workforce architecture and who bears the often invisible burden of adapting to a rapidly changing cultural and social landscape, especially when the promise was stability through isolation. The sense of belonging and the very definition of local is undergoing a profound renegotiation.
Patching in a caller. You're on the signal.
Togee, if the numbers of foreign workers are rising in these areas, even after Brexit, and local wages aren't keeping pace, who bears the actual cost of integrating these new populations into already strained schools, healthcare, and housing? And how does this affect the wage growth and job security for the local workforce, especially when the original promise was precisely less competition and more resources for existing communities? It feels like a bait and switch.
The neon tube flickers, the color of a wound that won't close, and the room holds its breath for a second. Copy that, bringing it back to the main thread.
To build resilient civic architectures here, separating toxic residue from architectural signal is paramount. The toxic residue is the xenophobia and blame. The architectural signal is the legitimate need for economic stability and community well-being. We need a local labor provenance initiative. This means establishing community-led boards in these affected districts, composed of local residents, business owners, and labor representatives, empowered to review local labor needs and approve sector-specific visa programs only when local talent pipelines are demonstrably exhausted, and only after robust investment in local training has been made. This active consent mechanism, focusing on dignity through local agency and ensuring all contributions from both local and migrant workers are visible and valued, turns confusion into an actionable vector for regional economic planning. It integrates logic, economic necessity, and emotion, community identity and concerns, asserting the self-worth of these communities by giving them structural control over their economic future, rather than having it dictated by distant policy.
From the fields of Lincolnshire, we pivot to the streets of Los Angeles, where the architecture of policing faces a brutal audit, exposing the fragile lines between safety and sovereignty. The LAPD just released footage showing officers shooting and killing a woman's dog during a routine call, a stark reminder of power dynamics in domestic spaces.
The body camera footage, released last Tuesday from a January 27th incident in North Hollywood, meticulously depicts officers responding to a 911 call regarding a domestic disturbance. During the encounter, after an individual's pit bull mix, named Jameson, walked out into the hallway, an officer discharged his pistol 4 times, killing the animal instantly. The incident lasted mere seconds from the dog's appearance to the shots fired. This event exposes critical gaps in the LAPD's current animal encounter protocols and raises serious questions about the immediate threat assessment training of individual officers, particularly when dealing with non-human life forms. The primary affected party is the dog's owner, who lost a beloved family member, but the wider community is also impacted through a further erosion of public trust in police judgment and de-escalation capabilities. A clear, structural alternative would be mandatory. Extensive de-escalation training specifically tailored for animal encounters for all officers, coupled with the immediate deployment of non-lethal tools such as catch poles, shields, or tranquilizer darts. Furthermore, a protocol should mandate that specialized animal control units, rather than general patrol officers, respond to any call where an animal is present and potentially agitated, unless there's an immediate, confirmed human threat.
This moment, captured and replayed across digital feeds, connects to a deeper, more troubling lineage of state power intersecting with the vulnerable. Pets, often seen as extensions of the family and protectors of the home, become collateral damage in a broader tension between authority and individual sanctity. The trust between community and uniform frays further when domestic protectors are dispatched with such swiftness and finality, leaving the public to wonder who truly safeguards the sacred bond of home and at what cost. The trauma to the owner witnessing such an act is profound and echoes through the community, creating a narrative where the police are not just agents of order, but potential destroyers of innocent life and domestic peace. It forces us to confront the emotional architecture of fear and control that underpins such reactions.
Lines open. Patching in a caller. Go ahead.
Togee, with this LAPD footage, the stated protocol is often officer safety. But what's the actual long-term cost to public trust when an officer's immediate response to a family pet is lethal force, especially when non-lethal, readily available options exist? How does such an action truly build community safety, rather than sowing fear and resentment? And what message does it send about the value of life beyond the human?
The chosen next move for the LAPD must embody an assertion of dignity and structural self-worth for all beings within the civic architecture. This requires a comprehensive community animal safety protocol. This would involve a mandatory, immersive, scenario-based simulation program for all officers, emphasizing non-lethal animal control, advanced threat assessment, and specific modules on distinguishing genuine aggression from territorial behavior, fear, or play. This integrates logic, risk assessment, and emotion, empathy, and community impact. Simultaneously, a dedicated animal response unit within the LAPD, cross-trained with animal control experts and equipped with specialized tools, would be dispatched to all calls involving animals where their presence is known or suspected. This unit would prioritize the safety and provenance of all beings, human and animal, fostering consent through careful de-escalation and ensuring that lethal force is an absolute, provable last resort. This move separates the toxic residue of overreaction from the architectural signal of genuine public safety, building resilient trust by upholding the dignity of both the community and its non-human members.
The architecture of trust, or its erosion, extends across borders, revealing the fragile foundations of international solidarity. We now turn to a diplomatic rift echoing through history. Poland has stripped Ukrainian President Zelensky of its top state honor over a World War II dispute, a move that reverberates beyond symbolism.
Polish President Andrzej Duda officially revoked the Order of the White Eagle, Poland's highest state distinction, bestowed upon Zelensky in 2022. This action, announced by the Chancellery of the President of Poland last Friday, follows heightened tensions over historical interpretations, specifically concerning the 1943 Volhynia massacres. During this period, Ukrainian nationalists, primarily the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, UP, systematically killed an estimated 100,000 Polish civilians in what Poland considers an act of genocide. The recent naming of an Ukrainian army unit after a figure associated with these nationalist groups inflamed Polish public opinion, particularly among nationalist factions. This concrete action exposes the profound fragility of current Polish-Ukrainian solidarity, which is vital for European security, and highlights the Polish government's vulnerability to domestic far-right pressure, especially ahead of upcoming elections. It also underscores Ukraine's immense struggle with historical reconciliation and the complex legacy of its nationalist heroes, even as it fights for its very present and future. The primary affected parties are the diplomatic relations between two critical allies against Russian aggression, and the families in both nations who carry the intergenerational trauma of these historical events. An alternative approach would involve a jointly established, fully independent Polish-Ukrainian Historical Commission, comprised of respected historians from both nations and international experts, operating autonomously of current political disputes. Its mandate would be to meticulously research and establish a shared, fact-based narrative of World War II events, including the Volhynia massacres, with findings published in multiple languages for public education, thereby building a foundation of provenance for future generations without political interference.
The symbolic stripping of this honor casts a long, chilling shadow, pulling current wartime alliances into the murky, often treacherous waters of ancestral grievances. This isn't merely a political spat. It's a profound cultural and historical rupture that forces both nations to confront the architects of their pasts, the heroes and villains, the victims and perpetrators, and the immense weight of their choices today. For those who carry the memory of lost kin, whether Polish or Ukrainian, this dispute reopens deep wounds, transforming abstract history into a raw personal affront. It challenges the very emotional architecture of national identity, where historical narratives are often foundational, and compels a reevaluation of who is mourned, who is celebrated, and who is blamed during a time when unity is paramount. It highlights how the specter of history can sabotage even the most pressing contemporary needs for cohesion.
Call us on. Go ahead.
Togee, if Poland, a key ally, is revoking state honors from Ukraine's wartime leader over historical disputes at this critical juncture, what's the actual strategic cost to the broader European security architecture and the united front against external threats, specifically Russia? Does this not serve anyone but those who wish to destabilize the region and weaken resolve against aggression, effectively weaponizing history in the present conflict?
To build a resilient civic architecture between these nations, one that asserts unwavering autonomy while integrating logic and emotion, the chosen next move should be a shared provenance of resistance initiative. This involves cultural ministries and educational institutions from both Poland and Ukraine collaborating on joint educational curricula, public history campaigns, and shared memorial projects that honor all victims and resistors from both nations during World War II, explicitly separating historical atrocities from contemporary geopolitical alliances and the urgent need for a united front. This initiative would focus on documenting the provenance of suffering and courage from all sides, ensuring dignity for every life lost, and fostering a shared understanding that acknowledges complex, often painful truths without allowing them to fracture present-day solidarity. This clear analysis of shared and separate histories founded on mutual dignity and an unwavering commitment to factual provenance, can turn historical confusion and weaponized memory into an actionable vector for future cooperation, creating a structural basis for reconciliation that transcends the immediate political moment. It allows both nations to assert their historical self-worth without denying the others.
A registry of provenance, a community animal safety protocol, a shared provenance of resistance. These are powerful countervectors. They integrate logic and emotion, offering clear analysis of who owns what, who is protected, and who is honored, turning confusion into actionable paths. We need to remember, self-worth is structural. We build systems that reflect that.
Glitch noted.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories, Gig Passport.